Hello guys, this is your friend Naruto Multiverse 2.0 and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is What If Naruto and Azula Fall in Love with Each Other Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Location: Konoha. Inside the council room, several people stood as a blonde-haired woman sat before a boy with a brighter shade of yellow. While the younger blonde simply sat in silence, the village council could not keep their smiles contained, satisfied at what they see as the village outcast finally getting his punishment. Of course, when asking either the civilian or shinobi member of the council what the crime was, they gave their own version. Has the council reached a verdict regarding Genin Uzumaki? Tsunade asked one of the civilian members, who promptly stood up. His smug grin was open for all to see. We have, Hokage-sama, he smirked. We find the demon, defendant, guilty of all charges. He sat down, satisfied with the verdict that he and his fellow civilian members had given. She looked down at the blonde shinobi. Naruto Uzumaki, because of your crimes against Sasuke Uchiha, you are banished from Konoha. You will be placed in jail until the fire daimyo arrives. Once he does, your chakra will be sealed, and you will never be allowed to return to the village unless we order you to come back. She looked at the Anbu in the room, standing silently in the back. Anbu, take him. Both the civilian and shinobi council watched as Naruto was led away. They had expected him to protest, say it wasn't his fault or ask why the Hokage was doing this, all in a loud voice. But Naruto did not react when his punishment was given and he walked out being gently, but firmly led by the Anbu. While the civilians were celebrating, the shinobi looked at each other. They all felt that something was wrong but they just did not know what it was. Naruto sat on the poor excuse for a bed. The lumps underneath would have made sleeping very uncomfortable. That went as expected, he said. He showed no emotion during the so-called trial because he knew what was going to happen long before that. Yes, it did. Are you still going to leave? The Biju inside him asked. Is that a rhetorical question, Kyubi? He asked back with a blank expression. Ever since he found out what would happen, he tried to keep his emotion clamped down tight, so far it was working quite well. The fox smirked. Fair enough, Gaki. Let me rephrase that. When are you going to leave? The blonde looked out the tiny window in his cell. Soon enough, he answered, looking at the night sky beyond the bars. Tsunade watched the sun go down from the window in the Hokage's office. As Shizune came through the door, Tsunade turned to her. Is everything ready? She asked her apprentice, who nodded in answer. She got out of the Hokage's chair. Let's go get Naruto. The two left her office and headed down to the jail. After Naruto came back with Sasuke, the civilian council had all but exploded at the Uchiha's battered condition and demanded Naruto's execution. She, along with Jiraiya and the Shinobi Council, tried to figure out a way to stop that from happening. The elders came up with a plan. Naruto would be banished. But they would wait for the fire daimyo to come to Konoha to banish him, to make it look official. However, what would really happen was Naruto would be secretly smuggled out of Konoha and given to Jiraiya, who would then train him for as long as he could, until Konoha needed him again. The civilian council only knew of the banishment part, which made them happy enough. Seeing as it was the best idea voiced, it was agreed on. Once Naruto was out of the village and safely with Jiraiya, Tsunade would secretly pass the real information of what actually happened to the daimyo and Konoha's allies were, especially Suna, because of Gaara. Naruto's teammates would be told once it came close for the blonde to return. But first they had to get him out. The first step began tonight. As Tsunade entered the jail, Shizune following behind, she motioned the guard actually an Anbu agent informed of the plan, to leave. He nodded in acknowledgement and silently left the room. She went to Naruto's cell and pulled out the key. Naruto, she called out. He turned from the window to her. We're getting you out of here. She opened the gate and motioned Naruto to come out. But he stayed put. Come on, Naruto, we don't have much time. They had to get him out soon. Otherwise, someone was bound to find out. He stood up, didn't move from that spot. Instead, he threw the Hokage a glare that was both angered and hurt. That's where you're wrong, Tsunade, Naruto said coldly. He reached up and untied his headband. You're wrong about the fact of not having much time. You didn't have any time to begin with. The headband fell to the floor, crashing loudly. At the same time, he disappeared in a plume of smoke. Shizune stared the smoke in the cell. It was a Kage Bunshin shadow clone. She asked, not believing what she saw. Tsunade could only silently nod. She was just as stunned. We have to send the Anbu squads out immediately. She rushed for the door. Tsunade followed a step behind. But even as she ran, there was a sick feeling in her stomach. Whatever they did, it would be too late. Naruto was gone. Location: Naruto. Naruto smiled as he stared out at the sea. He had done it. He gotten out without anyone finding him. When he brought Sasuke back to the village, he quickly found out that the civilian council wanted him executed. After discovering what Tsunade had been planning to do with him, he decided to take a page out of Orochimaru's, Itachi's, and recently Sasuke's book. He made the choice to sever all connections with Konoha. But he also knew that just walking out the front gates would not be a good plan. In fact, it was an idiotic plan. So, with some advice from the Kyuubi, the day before he was brought before the Hokage, he made a Kage Bunshin, and sent it out as far as he could from Konoha. While he was in jail, Naruto used a Kawarimi body replacement with the clone, swapping places. Once he was out, he ran as fast he could to the nearest port in the Land of Fire. It took him 3 days to reach it, and each was filled with watching everything for possible attacks. Once he reached the port, he signed on a deckhand on the first ship he came upon. As luck would have it, the ship was leaving the elemental countries. He didn't breathe easily until the Land of Fire disappeared from the horizon. The ship was now a month at sea and the elemental countries were far behind them. That was very slick, Naruto, Kyuubi complimented him. The fox always knew that if his Jinchuriki applied himself, the feats that he would be able to achieve would be quite impressive, like slipping out of Konoha's notice and being able to successfully evade them. Of course, he did help the blonde, but he had no doubt that with a little more practice, his Jinchuriki wouldn't need any help. I do try to please, Naruto replied, as he kept looking out at the sea. He knew that he was supposed to be working, but the sight stunned him. He was amazed by its beauty. It seemed tranquil and peaceful. But that was soon forgotten when he saw a dark smudge on the horizon. It ruined the image. Any idea on what that is out there, Kyuubi? I'm not an expert on what happens at Seagaki. It's probably nothing, he said dismissively. Naruto's boss, a experienced sailor called Shin, came over and started shouting at him for not working. He noticed the smudge and the tirade promptly vanished. Instead he swore loudly and told Naruto to get moving. That was a storm and it was approaching fast. He turned and ran, shouting for the captain. All the while, the smudge rapidly filled the skies, coming towards them like a black hand. Everyone on the deck scrambled to get below once the captain blew the warning whistle. By then it was too late. The storm hit the ship and hit it hard. The deck turned slippery as the rain pounded down. Naruto felt blinded by the rain, unable to see where anything was. His ears were plugged by the winds howling and the sea matching its tone. He tried to reach the deck hatch but couldn't find it, thanks to the rain. It seemed like he was the only person on deck now. When he thought he found the door, it turned out to be the prow. He was on the wrong end of the ship. He started to turn but a wave swept over the deck. It was sudden and pushed him over the side. He tried to grab something, anything that would keep him safe, but his hands only found air. The last thing he heard was the fox screaming, "Stay awake, Naruto. Stay awa." Location: Ember Island. Azula walked along the beach, annoyed. She had no idea why her father decided to send both her and her brother Zuko, as well as Mai and Tai Li, with her uncle Iroh to Ember Island for a vacation. It was getting unbearable with Tai Li being overly cheerful, her uncle doing nothing but drink tea, and Zuko and my being awkward around each other. If she stayed there any longer, she would be tempted to set everything on fire, although, with Iroh there, it probably wouldn't get that far. She sighed in frustration. Things had changed when her father became the Fire Lord and her mother had disappeared. She had gotten even better at firebending. People were calling her a prodigy before, now they looked at her with awe. She was being taught by the best firebenders that were out there, including her father. And while she progressed, Zuko floundered. She had gained his approval and Zuko, despite being the eldest, did not. But she resented her brother for always being with their mother. Azula always wanted her mother to show her that she was loved as well. But she always paid more attention to Zuko, and that had irritated Azula to no end. She heard someone coming behind her. It was Ty Lee. No one else had a spring in their step that was so audible. Azula suppressed a groan. As much as Ty Lee was her friend, she really didn't want to deal with her right now. Hey, Azula, called out Ty Lee. Why are you out? Her voice trailed into silence. That wasn't like her. Azula looked back at her and saw her pointing out to the water. Somebody had washed up on shore. Azula ran over to check. The first thing she noticed was that it was a boy about Zuko's age, maybe a little older. The second thing was that he was still breathing, somewhat. Ty Lee, go and get my uncle, she ordered. This boy is injured. He was bleeding from the head. Ty Lee nodded and ran back to the house. Azula looked closer at the boy, taking in details. He had blonde hair, which was uncommon, if not outright rare, in the bending countries. It reminded her of the sun. He had a natural tan and 6 strange birthmarks, 3 on each side of his face. They almost looked like whiskers. How strange. Hearing footsteps on the sand, she saw her uncle coming towards her. He knelt to examine the boy. Azula, go back to the house and get your brother to help you make a bed ready, Iroh said after looking the boy over. He didn't sound like his usual tea-loving self, but the general he used to be. She nodded once and ran back to the house. Naruto awoke to the sound of waves crashing on a shoreline. It sounded gentler than the waves in the storm. As he sat up, he noticed that somebody was sitting next to the bed. It was an old man who had a friendly look. Ah, you are awake, that is good, he said. Naruto looked around to figure out where he was. But all he saw was that he was in a house that was near the beach. Where? He started before a wave of nausea hit him and forced him back down onto the bed. But the old man understood what he had tried to ask. You are on Ember Island in my brother's beach house. My name is Iroh, he answered, pointing to himself. What is your name? He sounded curious, but there was also a tone of caution. The blonde managed to sit up again, slowly. This time, he wasn't by nausea. My name is Naruto. How did I get here? He asked. The last thing I remember was being swept into the sea when a storm hit my ship. Iroh looked at him understandingly. My niece found you when you washed up on shore. You managed to get a bad injury on your head. Naruto checked and found the injury. He winced at the small pain from his prodding. In that case, I think I should thank your niece for saving my life. Iroh smiled. I will tell her that. In the meantime, you should get some rest. I will be back with some tea. He stood up and walked out of the room. Nice to see you in the land of the living again, Kit, the QB spoke once he was certain they were alone. You almost had me worried there. If his Jinchuriki died, he died too. He liked living, even if it came this way. How long was I out, QB? Naruto asked, being all business. He kept his voice low so no one else could hear him. You were out for 2 days since you washed ashore. We were lucky. The ship was close to this island when the storm struck. If you hadn't drifted here during the night, you would have been a dead person. What he didn't say was that he practically ran himself ragged trying to make sure his Jinchuriki hadn't died before then. Well, it's a good thing we washed up here then. I guess you're right about that. But the question I have, Gaki, is what are you going to do now? As Iroh came back with tea, Naruto finished the conversation silently. What we are going to do is stay here now. Location: Fire Nation capital. Fire Lord Ozai looked at the 12 young men kneeling before him. These men were in the Fire Nation's military and were some of the best. After Ozai had scarred Zuko and banished him with the impossible task of finding the Avatar, there had been several attempts on his daughter's life by Earth Kingdom assassins. The last attempt would have been successful had a sentry not saw the attack and sounded the alarm. While Azula was recovering, Ozai did something he never would have thought he would do again. He contacted Iroh, who had gone with Zuko, and asked him for his advice. His brother had sent a reply proposing that Azula be given a bodyguard. He had even recommended someone, even though the two of them had only met the year before. Ozai agreed with the proposal and immediately looked for the most talented firebenders in the military to fill the role. And now those 11 were right in front of him, the 12th being Iroh's recommendation and was the only non-bender there. He had to be there, since Ozai agreed with his brother's suggestion. While the 11 were fairly well-known and respected officers in the army, the 12th was a common soldier and was often a problem, disobeying orders, protecting civilians and other nonsense. But the odd thing was that the soldiers had more respect for him than the other 11. Still, that was beside the point now. You are all here because you have been given an opportunity, Ozai said, looking down on them. You have the chance of becoming Princess Azula's bodyguard. You will be her shield against all threats to her. The 11 officers looked at him with excitement, as they should. This was indeed a great opportunity for them. It was the chance to bring more honor and prestige to their families. But the 12th remained silent. Now I have decided that there will be a test to decide who will protect Azula, the Fire Lord continued. There will be a tournament and the winner will become the bodyguard. The 11 officers nodded in agreement, while the 12th shook his head. Do you disagree with this plan, boy? Ozai asked with a slightly dangerous tone. There were only a very few, who would dare disagree him. He nodded once, looking up. Yes, Fire Lord Ozai, I do. It's pointless to fight among ourselves. Why don't the 12 of us fight in Agni Kai against Princess Azula herself? That way, we would be able to prove ourselves to her, he suggested. Ozai thought it over. He was willing to admit that the plan did have its merits. Very well then, the 12 of you will fight against my daughter in an Agni Kai. It will begin in 4 hours. The 12 stood up, bowed to Ozai, and left for the stadium. When he was alone, Ozai chuckled to himself. The poor fool Iroh had recommended would not last 5 minutes against his daughter. She was a firebending prodigy, while he could not bend at all. It wouldn't be a problem for Azula to beat him, and that was a sight Ozai was looking forward to. The stadium's audience buzzed with excitement. Princess Azula would be fighting in Agni Kai against 12 opponents. Such a task had never been done before, but everyone was absolutely sure that Azula could do it. She was, after all, a firebending prodigy. The princess herself was completely focused on it. Those who were challenging her would bite the dust. She didn't need a guard and she was going to prove that. The gong sounded, signaling the start. Azula rose from her kneeling position and turned to face her opponents. 11 of them wore the skull-like helmet of a firebender and, judging by their armor, were officers. But the 12th was just a soldier, and not even a firebender, judging by his conical helmet. As soon as she was done analyzing them, she took her stance. 11 of her opponents took that as the sign to attack. It took a combination of tricky maneuvering and exceptional firebending, but Azula defeated them. Once they were down, she turned her attention to the last. Her form was perfect, her control was precise. But no matter what she did, he would always manage to avoid her attacks. She bent fireball after fireball at him, trying to burn him to a crisp. But all he ever did was step out of the way. After a few more minutes of this, Azula looked at her opponent. Are you just going to stand over there or will you actually try to fight me? She asked angrily. He looked at her for a moment and Azula thought he looked a little familiar. While she was distracted by that thought, he got in close. It quickly proved effective. Every time Azula tried to use close combat firebending, her opponent would block the attacking limb. No matter what she did, she couldn't break past his defense. Azula realized why he did not attack with the others. He was observing how she fought and where her weak points were. He knew how to fight her, more importantly, how to block her. It angered her, making her fight harder. But the more she fought, the more she started to feel tired. Her breath, which she controlled perfectly, lapsed. That's when he attacked, sweeping legs out from under, causing her to fall and hit the tiles. He knelt down, pressing his knee to her stomach, holding a knife to her throat and using the other hand to pin her wrists. It was over, she had lost. After a few seconds passed, he withdrew his knife and released her wrists, letting Azula get back on her feet. As much as she wanted to attack, she knew she couldn't, not with everyone watching. The Fire Lord landed in the stadium and approached them. Well done, soldier. You have beaten my daughter, a firebending prodigy. While you are not a bender yourself, he seemingly praised the soldier. Azula, because of his victory against you, this soldier is now your personal bodyguard. He will protect you with his life. Show your face to your princess, Ozai commanded the soldier. He reached for his helmet and took it off. Azula's eyes went wide as she stared. Your location? Northern Water Tribe. Run for your life, was the general phrase the Fire Nation soldiers were screaming as they ran back to their ships. They were trying to escape the giant fish-like monster the Avatar had created out of water. As they retreated, they saw a person in a black cloak with the hood up. If they took the time to stop and look, they would have known who he was. But they were more focused on saving their lives. The cloaked man didn't care that they didn't notice. He walked past them, keeping his eyes on the monster. Once he was close, the monster noticed him. It swung its arm, either to swat or drown him. He settled into a stance, moved his hands and drew out his Jien. He swung his sword once and the monster's arm simply fell off. It reeled back as he sheathed the Jien. He had the chance to press the attack. But before he did anything, he felt a familiar presence by his side and stayed silent. L.A. An ethereal voice rang out, getting the monster's attention. What do you think you're doing? The people of the Water Tribe looked on in fear as the voice continued. Have you forgotten what Tui was supposed to guard? You were supposed to make sure she did not die, you are her guardian. Now she is dead and you are out here trying to take revenge when what you should be back there trying to find a way to fix the balance. You will get your watery back to that oasis, right now. I will clean up this mess. Now go. The voice roared at the giant monster. Once what he had said had gotten through, the cloaked person moved on quickly to his next target. As Zuko and Zhao fought against each other, they saw that the giant monster suddenly melt down and retreat back to the oasis. What is going on? Zuko asked in wonder. His paws allowed Zhao to punch him in the chest, knocking him to the ground. My troops were successful in destroying that thing, Zhao declared triumphantly as he stood over his opponent. Soon they will destroy the Water Tribe for good, and my name will be remembered forever. But while he seemed certain in his victory, it earned him a scornful laugh. They both looked and saw the cloaked person leaning against a doorway. How very wrong of you, Zhao, he said. As of right now, the ships from the Fire Nation are heading back to safe waters. The invasion failed. Your name will be forgotten, Zhao. And your life is forfeit. Zhao's face went dead white, paling in fear. He ran away, rushing past Zuko. I love it when they run, the cloaked man said with a smile as he went after him, leaving behind a bewildered Zuko. Sokka stared at the two fish circle each other. The ocean spirit had come back to the oasis and melted back into the pond, leaving Aang on the grass. Zuko arrived shortly after, only to find the Avatar unconscious with Katara and Sokka there as well as his uncle. Aang woke up shortly afterwards. Zuko and Iroh decided to take their leave at that point, but were interrupted when Zhao ran back into the oasis with a terrified expression. Someone, please hide me. He half screamed, surprising everyone. It literally looked like he was scared for his life. At that moment all they saw was a blur and suddenly the cloaked person was behind Zhao with his Jien out. Admiral Zhao, For your incompetence and blatant stupidity, you will die, he said in an official voice. Before anyone could stop him, he plunged his jian through Zhao's neck. As he tried to pull it, it got stuck. He tried to wiggle it loose but instead it snapped in half. Damn it, not another one, he muttered as he looked at the ruined half in his hand. As Zhao's body fell, he dropped it as well. Aang had watched the entire scene with horrified eyes. Why did you do that? He was defenseless and scared. You didn't need to kill him. He cried angrily, a furious expression on his face. He might have disliked Zhao, but he never would have killed him, especially when he was like that. The person said nothing in response. He only walked forward, like he was going to take Aang. But he was blocked by Sokka, his boomerang out and ready to use. Move, boy, he told him. Sokka just shook his head. Move, he said again, putting an edge in his voice. Look pal, I've been having a bad day. The Northern Water Tribe was invaded, the Moon Spirit was killed, and the girl that I liked gave up her life in order to become the new Moon Spirit. So pardon me if I'm not just going to roll over and let you take one of my friends, okay? Sokka asked in a half-sarcastic, half-deadly serious tone of voice. The man did nothing for a second, then he laughed. I can respect that, he finally said. He looked slightly up to the air. What do you think? He asked no one in particular. Even though there was no reply, he bowed his head slightly as if he heard one. He turned to leave when Iroh said, hold a moment. He looked back at him. What do you want, old man? Iroh, completely unfazed by his rudeness, grinned. It's nice to see you again, Naruto. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the man sighed in resignation. Iroh, he greeted, lowering his hood. Zuko's eyes widened as he stared at the blonde. Iroh grew serious. Naruto, why are you here? He asked. He knew who the blonde served and he also knew that he wouldn't have come to the North Pole by himself, not unless he had a good reason. Why do you think I'm here? Naruto asked him back. He would have thought it was an obvious thing. His eyes widened in surprise. She sent you here. He never would have thought that she would do such a thing. But then again, he had not seen her in some time. The blonde nodded. She understands the need for balance. He may have had a hand in that, but the end result was still the same thing. Iroh laughed. 2 years ago, she would not have cared if the Moon Spirit was killed, only if the Northern Water Tribe had been conquered. Truly, it was remarkable how different she apparently was. You could say that I've been an influence on her. Zuko finally caught on. Wait, you don't mean, he started to say, but stopped when Naruto only nodded once. He just looked at him in disbelief. Hey kid, what's your name? Naruto asked Sokka, turning his attention back to the tribesman. My name isn't Kid, Sokka told him indignantly. It's Sokka of the Southern Water Tribe. Well then Sokka, it will be interesting to have you on board, Naruto told him. Just try to keep him on a short leash from now on, huh? He asked, indicating Aang with his eyes. What he said was confused to the tribesman. But before he could ask what he meant, the blonde had turned to leave again. He walked away, leaving the Zhao's corpse behind, and was halfway to the exit when the avatar landed in front of him. You didn't answer my question, why did you kill him? Aang demanded, pointing to Zhao's body. Do you not care about human life? Naruto looked at the avatar, who was shaking with righteous anger. This is coming from you? He asked with ice-cold eyes. You, a coward who shirked his duty and murderer, would actually say something like that? Aang stiffened. I am not a coward or a murderer. You are those things, boy, he all but spat out the last word. When you were told you were the avatar, instead of stepping up, you ran away and hid for 100 years, while this war went on. You betrayed your own people with those actions. Aang faltered a little. Those words did hit a little close for him. What the blonde said was true, he did run away. But he didn't know what it had felt like back then, how it felt to be betrayed by the monks. I'm not a murderer. Naruto smirked like he had caught the avatar in a trap. So you are the last airbender just by coincidence. Aang took a step back like he had been slapped, and the blonde took a step forward. But he didn't say anything else, or even try to attack. He just walked past the avatar like he was unimportant. Aang fell down to the ground as the question repeated itself again and again. Its implications drew up memories of what he did repeated over and over again in his mind. All of a sudden, all he could see was how the Fire Nation destroyed his people, why he wasn't there to do anything about it. He felt Katara and Sokka by his side. They were talking but he couldn't hear the words. While the Avatar's friends tried to make sure he was alright, Zuko and Iroh took the chance to leave the oasis as well as the Northern Water Tribe. Location: Fire Nation capital. Azula walked into her room with purpose. Her father had given her a task to do, one she would accomplish. She started to pack, making sure that she took everything she needed. So what did the royal flaming asshole want you to do? A voice asked her from a shadow against the wall. It would have surprised and/or sacred anyone else, but Azula had lived with it for 2 years now, so she had gotten used to it. That's Fire Lord Ozai to you, Naruto, she told her bodyguard, who stepped out of the shadows. Naruto had grown in the past 3 years. He had lost the rest of his baby fat, giving him a more mature look. His hair had grown out a bit, giving him a wild look, and had put a good deal of muscle on his body. All in all, Naruto had turned into someone that girls paid attention as he walked by. Add in his politeness and his manners, and he had fangirls wherever he went, something he did not appreciate. But that was only girls. Azula's father and her bodyguard did not see eye to eye often and didn't agree on a lot of things. Because of Naruto's unique position, he was allowed a seat on the War Council despite being a common soldier, which also irritated Ozai to no end. What further irritated the Fire Lord was that during the War Council, Naruto would often oppose him when a plan for the warfront was passed. He would give his solution to the plan, or come up with his own. His plan would save lives while also gaining territory in the Earth Kingdom. Because of his plans, the soldiers all loved and respected him, while the officers took after Ozai and treated him with disdain. He just told them that he didn't want to lose anyone else, having lost a lot of people while fighting in the war. You say fire, I say flambe, Naruto replied with a grin. She huffed in annoyance. Why do you still do that? She asked, referring to him talking from the shadows. He did that to her for the first couple of months the two of them were together. Old habit, Naruto answered with a shrug of his shoulders. He'd do it to A. Sharpen her senses as well as make her develop a danger sense. He would throw things at her if she didn't find him fast enough, and B. to freak her out and make her lighten up. She looked at the GN he had. Is that a new one? She asked him with a raised eyebrow and a smirk. He frowned in annoyance. Yeah, it is. Grabbed it at some point during the week I spent coming back here. That was something odd about him. Every time he had a GN, sooner or later it would somehow break. He was also pretty sure that there was a pool going on about how long a particular GN would last and how it would be destroyed. But he didn't let his annoyance linger, becoming serious as he refocused on her. What did he want you to do? The Fire Lord wants me to hunt down and capture my uncle and Zuzu. He nodded once. I'll go grab the rest of my gear. He turned for the door. Azula stopped him. Naruto, why did you agree to go the North Pole? I told you only what I thought Zhao would do and I could have been wrong but you still went. Why? She knew that what Zhao had almost succeeded in doing would have been disastrous. But for some reason, that was not the only reason her bodyguard was willing to go up to the North Pole. Naruto looked back at her. I went to stop Zhao from doing something stupid but I had a different reason for doing that than you, he said cryptically. Naruto, she called out. You won't leave me alone, will you? She asked with a slight fear in her voice. She hated how weak she sounded at that moment. She knew that something was happening to her but she didn't know what it was. She still had her devious and cruel edge, but there were times where she thought that everyone would leave her and she would be alone and not wanted or loved. That thought scared Azula to no end. That's why she asked Naruto. He had been with her for 2 years, had been a friend as well as a bit of a teacher to her. So she was terrified if he would actually leave her. He walked back over to her. Before she could object, he pulled her into a hug. I told you this before, he said to her, his voice soothing. I will always be there with you, even when you don't need or want me. I swore to protect you, no matter what it may cost me. I'm your servant, your protector and your friend. Remember that, Azula, and you will never be alone. Azula gave a small smile. When she stepped away from the hug, she was back to normal. Weren't you going to go grab your gear? She asked pointedly. Naruto laughed. All right, I'll go now. One more thing, Naruto. Did you see my uncle and Zuzu in the Northern Water Tribe? He stopped at the door. Yeah, I did, although I suspect that they have already left. I also met someone interesting, he replied, looking at her once more. Azula looked at him. Who was it? Someone who managed to land the same position I have without even recognizing it. Even though he used the word position, he wasn't talking about guarding Azula, he considered that a job. I'm guessing you aren't talking about the Avatar. His expression soured at the mention of him. No, not him. Someone else much more interesting. And what is so special about this boy? Azula asked. He smiled mysteriously. He isn't a bender. He left the room, leaving Azula to think about her task and how to do it. Already a plan was shaping in her mind. Sokka stood at the ship's prow, watching the water pass by. He was trying to think, but with what they were going up against, he was finding it hard to even concentrate. A brief pain in his leg appeared suddenly, like something was biting him. Instead of hopping around and yelling like he normally would have, he looked at said biter. I thought you stopped doing that to me, Aquila, he said in good humor. The wolf pup's look said he was thinking too much. Sokka and Aquila had not been with each other for long. Sokka was fishing outside of the city. He had excused himself so he would not feel completely useless since the reconstruction was being taken care of by waterbenders Katara and Aang among them. He was fishing for sea crabs to bring more food. It made himself useful, in a little way. That was when he heard a whimpering noise coming from a nearby ice cave. He could barely hear it, but it was still there. He went to see what was making the noise and found a 4-month-old wolf pup laying next to a wolf that had been burnt to death. Sokka immediately knew it was the pup's mother. As he neared the pup, it turned around and growled at him. Its fur was covered in soot and ash. He had been giving the pup a bath in the spirit oasis when Paku and some of his students found him. What anger the waterbending master had at the scene transformed into shock when Sokka pulled the pup out of the water. The pup's fur was pure white. Sokka and Katara had been surprised too, but Aang was puzzled. Once he was told about the tribal myth of white wolves, he was surprised as the rest of the group. By then the pup had wormed his way into their hearts, so they decided to keep him. Sokka named the pup Aquila, after the alpha wolf in the myth. Aquila had gotten along well with Appa. When the two of them met for the first time, Appa had been sleeping. Aquila simply jumped onto Appa's head, made himself comfortable and began sleep as well. According to Sokka, they now had a friendship that was made in sacred snoring. Aquila and Momo did not have such an easy meeting. According to Katara, when Aquila saw Momo, somehow he grinned like Sokka when he was hungry and saw something that had meat. This led to a grand merry chase throughout the city. By the time it had ended, Momo was hiding inside Aang's clothes and Sokka was telling Aquila that if he could not have the winged lemur for dinner, then neither could he. After that, if Momo was irritating Aquila, all Aquila had to do was show him that same grin and Momo was gone quicker than you could blink. Aquila pushed against Sokka's leg. He reached down and scratched Aquila behind the ear. The pup was big enough to reach his kneecap and it looked like he was going to get bigger. I was just thinking about what we're up against, that's all, he told him. It was hard not to, considering who it was. Flashback. The prisoner was a Fire Nation seaman, part of the fleet that attacked the Northern Water Tribe. He was captured while trying to make it back to the ships. Both Paku and Chief Arnook interrogated him for information about the Fire Nation military forces and plans, but he responded only with silence and insults. After 4 hours, Paku and Arnook let Aang, Katara and Sokka talk to the prisoner, thinking the Avatar might be able to get some answers out of him, leaving them with a contingent of waterbenders. Aang and Katara did most of the talking while Sokka hung back and listened, but the prisoner just gave them the same treatment. "Well, what about you, little water tribe boy?" he finally asked Sokka. "Don't you have a method for pumping me for information?" Sokka thought about it, briefly. He shook his head. "No, I won't do that." He did have a question though. "Do you know anything about a guy named Naruto?" The prisoner's head snapped up so quickly, some had hoped he had broken his neck. "How do you know about Lord Naruto?" he demanded. Sokka was a bit surprised at his reaction. He had honestly not been expecting it. "I was there when he killed Zhao." "What did you do to gain his attention?" "I stood in his way when he tried to take the Avatar and didn't move," he answered. "Where was this going?" The prisoner seemed surprised. "And he didn't kill you?" "No. He asked me my name, looked up to the sky, asked a question but didn't get a reply. That's all." "Well, he probably should not show what he had found in his pack that night, but he didn't know what else to do. He didn't get an answer, but I found this later." He pulled out a medallion with 4 strange symbols carved on it. On the top of the medallion was an upside-down triangle while on the bottom was a normal triangle. On the right side of the medallion was an upside-down triangle with a line through it, on the left side was the same triangle with the line only right side up. Each of the symbols had lines connecting it to another symbol, either curving along the side or going straight down the middle. When he saw the medallion, the prisoner was stunned. He looked at his hands, manacled and chained to the ground, both made out of ice. He took a breath and then completely melted them by firebending. Before anyone could attack, the prisoner knelt before Sokka, his head touching the ground. "Forgive me, Lord Sokka," he said. His voice was slightly muffled as it was coming up from the ground. Everyone was dumbstruck, but Sokka was able to recover quickly. "Why am I forgiving you?" he asked carefully. The prisoner brought his face up. "I ask for forgiveness because I did not believe your words about Lord Naruto." "It's okay, but I still want to know who this Naruto is and what this medallion is." "I do not know about the medallion itself. But the fact that you have it means that you are also a paragon," he explained, even though what he said did not really explain anything. Sokka grew confused. "A paragon, what is that?" he asked. "I cannot say. Only Lord Naruto can explain it to you." He almost sounded ashamed. Aang decided to interrupt. "What's so great about this Naruto anyway? From what I've seen of him, he is a murderer who doesn't even care about human life." Even since their meeting, the air nomad did not hold the blonde in that high of a regard. The prisoner leapt up, looking like he wanted to do some serious damage to Aang, perhaps even kill him. Sokka got in front of him. It was almost laughable, facing down a soldier like this. But he did it. "Stand down, soldier," he commanded, figuring that the soldier would respond to commands like that. The prisoner complied but glared at Aang. "I will not hear you slander Lord Naruto. Every time he fights in the field, he tries to make sure that everyone gets out alive. He tries to save lives while you cower and hide, Avatar. So, shut your mouth." Katara was about to respond when Sokka looked at her and shook his head. Looking at the prisoner, he asked, "Can you talk about him?" If the soldier was willing to tell him information, it might help if they ever run into the blonde again. "Lord Naruto is the bodyguard of Princess Azula and the paragon of the Fire Nation," the soldier explained. "He's been given an honorary rank and commands respect from the soldiers, benders and non-benders alike. He leads his men personally into battle and has won many victories. He is able to fight and defeat a bender on equal grounds and has done so on many occasions, both within the Fire Nation military and the enemy." Is he a bender himself? That was the clincher. If this Naruto was a bender, then that meant he would be able to figure out a way to fight him. "No, he is not. Why would he consider my brother to be his equal? Shouldn't he be more worried about the Avatar? Katara asked. The prisoner laughed at her. Lord Naruto doesn't even consider the Avatar a threat. He believes that a person who runs away and lets his own people die is a weak coward with no honor. I'm not weak or a coward. Aang protested. You had to go into the Avatar state just to attack us with that giant water monster, and Lord Naruto was able to defeat you with one swing of his sword. You are a weak coward and have no honor. Therefore, Lord Naruto has no respect for you, he said derisively. Aang, feeling furious at such words, left. Katara quickly went after him. Thank you, Sokka told the soldier. He walked away, allowing the nearby waterbenders shackled to the prisoner again. You're slow, Aang. Pakku barked as his students trained. Avatar or not, you need to be better if you want to pass my expectations. He noticed Katara looking at the stairs. Sokka was standing there, Akila beside him. What do you want, Sokka? He asked the young tribesman, walking over to him. Sifu Pakku, can we speak alone? Sokka asked formally. He looked at him with a brief look of curiosity and confusion before nodding in agreement. Practice your sets until I return, he told his students. He led Sokka down the steps through the city until they reached a secluded spot. What is it that you want? He asked as they stepped out of the sight. I want you to teach me waterbending, Sokka told him. Pakku started to laugh. It was something that he had never heard before. A person who wasn't a bender who wanted to learn how to waterbend. It was downright ridiculous. You want me to teach you how to waterbend when you're not even a bender? He asked rhetorically. You would be an embarrassment to me and my teachings. He bowed his head. I apologize, I meant that what you to teach me how to waterbend without bending, he tried to explain. The laughter stopped. What are you talking about? You cannot waterbend without bending. Sokka silently cursed himself. He needed to explain this better. He could do that. What I mean is, please teach me the basic stances and sets for waterbending, that is all. Pakku was silent as he looked at Sokka's bowed head. Why? Because there is someone out there who might come after Aang and who is stronger, faster, better than me. And all I have is my machete, my club and my boomerang. You have forgotten about your intelligence and wits. What he lacked in waterbending ability, he made up greatly in smarts. Give him a few years to hone them, and Pakku was certain that few, very few, would be able to match wits against him. That won't be enough to beat this guy. Sokka unexpectedly shouted, exasperated and annoyed at the fact that the older man was not getting his point. In the silence that followed, the two of them stared at each other. Is there another reason for this request? Pakku asked with suspicion. Sokka nodded his head once. Reaching into his shirt, he pulled out the medallion he found. For some reason he just could not explain, he found himself more at ease wearing it. When the waterbending master saw it, his eyes went wide in shock and surprise. I see, he said. He turned around and walked away. He stopped and looked back. Just because you're not a bender doesn't mean that I'm going to be easy on you. In fact, I am going to push to your edge and then I am going to make you break that edge, got it? His expression was hard, practically unforgiving. Sokka knew that meant his request had been granted. Yes, Sifu Pakku, he answered. As he followed Pakku back to where the training ground, he tried to hide a smile from Pakku. He wasn't sure if it worked. End flashback. That was a long month, Sokka said to himself. Pakku hadn't been kidding when he said he was going to push Sokka to his edge. The man was relentless. Lesser men would have caved or run away, but Sokka was stubborn. He needed to do this, needed to know how to fight without his weapons should the time ever come when he did not have them. His stubbornness worked out in the end as he began to improve. He also began seeing how Aang moved when he was airbending. As he got better and better, earning some praise from Pakku, for a reason unknown to him, he was also getting silent disapproval from Katara. Aang did not understand what Sokka was doing but did not object to it. Sokka looked at the night sky and saw the full moon. For a moment, he was reminded of you and felt a pang of guilt. Come on, it's time we went to bed, he told Akila. He made his way to the stairs leading below deck with the pup trailing behind him. And if you fart in my face again, you're sleeping in the crow's nest. The pup simply gave a challenging look. As the two of them walked to the stairs, Sokka saw Katara and Aang talking. He heard the words, Avatar, and, scary. He kept going, more intent on sleeping. The next morning, they were about head to an Earth Kingdom base before heading to Omashu. Both Katara and Aang had been given gifts from Pakku and now Sokka stood before him. Sokka, Pakku started. Your training has no doubt been one of my more unusual ones. But nonetheless, you have also proven to be one of my best students, perhaps even better than your sister. He sighed. My only disappointment is that you are not a waterbender. Had you been one, you would have one of the greatest benders this side of the world has ever seen. Sokka bowed his head respectfully. Thank you, Sifu Pakku. He climbed onto Appa's back and settled in, getting a dirty look from Katara. Chief Arnuk has sent a message to a village that his father had once known, Pakku told them. They will send someone to meet up with you once you have reached Omashu and begin your earthbending training with King Bumi. For now, head to General Fong's base so that they can give you an escort. Understood, Sokka answered. As Appa took off, he heard Katara muttering something. Is everything alright, Katara? He asked. Everything is fine, Sokka. Just fine, she replied in an annoyed tone. He chose not to push it. If she wanted to tell him, she would. Location: FNS Royal Flame. Naruto watched as Azula gave her men a speech. It was short and to the point, driving home the points she felt they needed to hear. She was good at that. My brother and my uncle have disgraced the Fire Lord, and have brought shame on all of us, she said, walking amongst them. You might have mixed feelings about attacking members of the royal family. I understand, but I assure you, if you hesitate, I will not hesitate to bring you down. No one said a word. They didn't dare to. Dismissed. As her men left, the captain approached and gave a quick bow. Princess, I'm afraid the tides will not allow us to bring the ship into port before nightfall, he told her. She looked out at the sea from the prow. I'm sorry, Captain, but I do not know much about the tides, she said without once looking at him. Could you explain something to me? Of course, Your Highness. Do the tides command this ship? I'm afraid I don't understand. Even as he said the words, he felt a sense of dread turning in his stomach. You said the tides would not allow us to bring the ship in. Do the tides command this ship? She asked again. This time, the question came with a sharp warning. No, Princess. And if I were to have you thrown overboard, would the tides think twice about smashing you against the rocky shore? That dread morphed into a panic. As much as he didn't want to think that could happen, the princess was every inch the Fire Lord's daughter. No, Princess. Well then, maybe you should worry less about the tides, who've already made their mind about killing you, and worry about me, who is still mulling over. She told him. He bowed. I'll pull us in. Naruto stopped him before he went to the command deck. I know she told you to bring the ship in, but I want you to use your best judgment, he said, keeping his voice calm. The captain felt a little more at ease but stayed alert to the princess. Thank you, Lord Naruto. But right now, my best judgment is to obey Princess Azula, he replied. He did not want to be on the receiving end of her anger. He chuckled. I wouldn't worry. Azula won't have you thrown overboard because of this. The captain didn't believe him. I'll go talk to her. The captain nodded in thanks and went inside. Naruto walked up to Azula. How many times have I asked you to stop threatening the captain of the ship, Azula? He asked her. I lost count, she answered, half sarcastically. That got her a smack upside the head. Ow, what was that for? She demanded, rubbing her head. That was for being sarcastic when I was being serious. But you do it to me all the time. I'm your bodyguard, I'm allowed, he said lightly. Then he got serious. But back to the point, you told me that you would stop threatening captains after that incident involving that one captain's son in the bedroom. His pointed look had her blushing faintly. That happened one time and you still won't let it go, she accused. It was not like anything happened. With good reason, Azula. If you want to rule the Fire Nation, then you cannot threaten or punish everyone who displeases you. That will get you killed in the end, understand? She nodded. Good. Now I'm going to let you off the hook this one time, but keep this up and I will enforce punishments, he said lightly. Azula grew nervous. What kind of punishments? Her voice didn't crack, at least she didn't think it. To those who knew Naruto in the Fire Nation, if he used the word punishment, what he really meant was that he was going to prank you and prank you hard. No one was safe from Naruto's punishments, not even Fire Lord Ozai, considering he was the first victim of Naruto's punishments. I'll just let your imagination try and figure that out, he said with an evil smirk. He walked away, leaving Azula with a sacred look on her face. Meanwhile, inside his head, the Kyuubi was laughing. You truly are evil, Gaki. I threaten her for a reason, Fox. If she keeps going like this, she's going to end up like her royal flaming asshole of a father, he told the Biju. I know that, and you're doing a decent job of guiding her. But even you have to admit that some of your methods are downright hilarious. Of course, I do. That is why I do them. It's a treat to see the confident Fire Nation princess get flustered and angry, he stated with a quiet laugh. Location. Aboard Appa. Sokka kept a lookout as they flew. He was the first to see their destination. There it is, he cried, pointing to a large fortress. Now knowing where to go, Aang flew Appa towards and into the fortress, landing on a terrace. They were greeted by someone instantly. Welcome Avatar Aang. I'm General Fong, the general introduced himself while he and the men behind him bowed their heads. And welcome to all of you great heroes, Appa, Momo and the mighty Katara. Mighty Katara, I like that, Katara stated, crossing her arms. She certainly felt mightier since she really knew how to waterbend. The title gave her a certain sense of satisfaction and smugness. Fong looked around. Forgive me, but wasn't there another person with you? He asked, making Aang and Katara start to look around for Sokka. He was still in the saddle, having a conversation with Aquila. You really need to stop falling asleep every time you get on Appa, he told the pup, who just yawned in reply. After he and Aquila landed on the ground, he saw the general and the others. Sorry about that. Once Aquila is out, he's hard to wake up. General Fong shook his head. That's not a problem, Paragon Sokka, he said shortly. He turned around and motioned them to follow. As they went into the main tower, Sokka was not quite sure, but he could have sworn Fong said that last part with distaste. Then again, how did he know what the tribesman was now? He certainly had not told anyone. Fong took them to the main hall. Avatar Aang, we were all amazed at the stories of how you single-handedly wiped out an entire fire navy at the North Pole, he said from behind his desk. I can't imagine what it feels like to handle devastating power. It's an awesome responsibility, he declared while stroking his bread, trying to look wise. Aang didn't like what he was implying. I think those stories are a little exaggerated. I never destroyed any of the ships, he began to say. But Fong cut him off. Avatar, you're ready to face the Fire Lord now. What? Shouted said Airbender. No, I'm not. He was not even close to ready. Katara agreed. Aang still needs to master all four elements, she told Fong. Why? With the power he possesses, power enough to destroy hundreds of battleships in a matter of minutes, he can defeat the Fire Lord. He replied, coming to his feet. I told you, I never sunk any of those ships. This time Aang was stopped by Sokka, who put a hand on his shoulder. But sir, Aang can only do that when he's in the Avatar state, he told the general. You see, it's the special state where. Before Aang could even start his explanation, Fong interrupted him. I'm aware. Your eyes and tattoos glow and you gain unbelievable power. He turned to the map beside him. Without you, we'd be slaughtered before we even reached their shores. But, with you leading the way, as the ultimate weapon, we could cut a swath right through to the heart of the Fire Nation. He placed his finger on the location of his fortress and drew it to the capital of the Fire Nation with a board stroke. When Sokka heard the words, ultimate weapon, his eyes went flat and he began to grow suspicious of the general. Aquila also picked up on what the general had said and began to softly growl. Sokka looked briefly at the pup, shaking his head and silently telling him to stop. Aquila did so, albeit reluctantly. Right, but I don't know how to get in or out of the avatar state, much less what to do once I'm there, Aang explained uneasily. He omitted the fact that he felt scared about the avatar state. So, it's decided then. The general turned away from the map and faced them. I'll help figure out how to get into the avatar state and then you'll face your destiny, he declared. Okay. Katara didn't like where this was going. She stood up and the others mimicked her actions. No, nothing's decided. We already have a plan. Aang's pursuing his destiny his way. Fong didn't seem too impressed with her crossed arms and daring expression. Well, while you take your time learning the elements, the war goes on, he replied. May I show you something? He came down from his desk and led them to a window. He pointed down to a small building. Wounded soldiers were going in or out of it. Most were injured somehow. That's the infirmary and those soldiers are the lucky ones, they came back, he told them. Every day, the Fire Nation takes lives. People are dying, Aang. You could end it, now. Seeing the indecisiveness obviously etched onto the Avatar's face, he eased off somewhat. Think about it. He walked back to his desk and sat down, watching in silence as Aang and Katara left the room, leaving Sokka and Aquila. Was there something you needed? He asked the tribesman. Sokka looked the man straight in the eye. Yeah, I have a question. How many of those men were injured because of sheer stupidity? He asked back. From what he heard come out of the general's mouth, he sounded like the kind of guy who would do that. Whatever do you mean, Paragon Sokka? The distaste was much more evident now that the two of them were alone. How do you know I was a paragon, anyway? I never told anyone about that. Word travels, paragon. This time, he all but spat the last word out. By now, everyone on this side of the world has probably heard that you are a paragon. So, what do you have against me, personally? Or do you dislike because of what I am? Fong's face grew hard and bitter. I've read my history. I know what your predecessors have done. This war will be won by the Avatar and by the Benders as well as the non-Benders who support him. It will not be won by upstart little brats who think they are better than the Avatar. Why don't you go home and let the Avatar, your sister, and the adults fight the war? Quote. Aquila growled loudly and lunged for the general, only for Sokka to bark out, Aquila, heel. He stopped, but still bared his fangs, small as they were, at the general before patting back to Sokka. Try to control your dog. We don't need a feral animal loose here, Fong told Sokka. Aquila is a wolf, not a dog. And I like him feral. Sokka motioned Aquila to follow him as he walked to the open doors. Just before he left, he turned back to face Fong. Let me ask you this question instead. How many men were injured and how many were killed because of your sheer stupidity when you went up against Naruto? He left the room with that question in the air. Location. FNS Royal Flame. Azula practiced the motions again and again. But no matter how many times she was able to generate lightning, she was still one hair out of place. Both Lo and Lee had left her, going down below. They said it was so she could have some peace. She took it to mean they were tired of her not getting it. It was frustrating, but she kept at it. When she finally stopped, she saw her bodyguard was still in the same spot as when she started. He was sitting in a meditative position and concentrating on his outstretched right hand. After a few seconds, what looked like blue kai to Azula began to swirl around his palm. It began to compress on itself as more and more began to form and swirl. Soon enough, floating a few inches above his palm, was a blue spinning orb. She saw Naruto's eyes focus on the orb and it began to spin even faster and form 4 white blades spinning around the outside of the orb. As she watched, Azula heard a low thrumming, like something was trying to cut the air itself. The orb continued to spin until it abruptly disappeared. Naruto sighed in slight frustration. Not there yet, but definitely making progress, he said to himself. He rose and looked at Azula. Is something the matter? It's nothing. I keep generating lightning, but no matter how many times I do it, I'm always just a hair out of place, she replied, sounding as frustrated as she felt. He raised an eyebrow questioningly. Are you telling me that in order for your lightning generation to be perfect, you must have perfect hair? He asked mischievously. Before Azula could respond, he continued. I'm just playing with you, Azula. You have made some good progress with lightning generation. Do you remember what happened the first time you successfully created a lightning bolt? She looked away. Enough, Naruto. I'm glad that I managed to spread my legs in time, but what I want to know was why that lightning bolt was that low in the first. I said enough. She bent a fireball at him, which he promptly dodged. You need to lighten up, Azula. You keep going like this and you will burn out fast. You're already one of the best firebenders out there. No, I cannot just be one of the best, I must be the best firebender there is. I have to be perfect in OW. That last bit was uttered because Naruto had bonked her on the head. Stop right there, Azula. That is your royal flaming asshole of a father speaking, and I want to hear you, not him, speak, Naruto told her in a serious voice. Now what do you think of your lightning generation abilities? Azula thought it over for a minute, trying to separate what were her thoughts and what were the thoughts her father drilled into her. I think that they're pretty decent, she finally answered. The fact that she was able to generate lightning at all was impressive. Naruto smiled warmly. There, you see. It is okay to be decent at something, Azula. Remember that no one is perfect. He looked at the setting sun. Let us head below decks, we're both tired and hungry. A meal and some sleep will do us good. Azula nodded in agreement and began to walk towards the stairs alongside Naruto. By the way, Naruto, what was that thing in your hand? It looked like it was made from blue kai, she asked him, her curiosity finally getting the better of her. It's just something I'm working on, that's all, he answered shortly. Once it's done, will you show me how it works? She was curious to see what would happen if he used it in combat. No, Azula, I only plan to use it when the situation calls for it. That was all he would talk about the subject. He wanted to keep what he was working close to the chest. The banging on the door woke Naruto up. Feeling glad he went to sleep in his clothes, he opened the door to see one of the firebenders in front of him. What is it, soldier? He asked. The firebender was a little nervous but kept his voice from cracking. Sir, it's Princess Azula. She had nightmare and now will not let anyone in to see her, not even Lady Lo or Lady Li. She's tried to burn anyone who walks in, he rapidly explained. Naruto nodded. Go back to your post, soldier. I'll take care of this. The soldier saluted and left. He came out of his room and walked down the corridors to Azula's room. Both Lo and Li were standing outside the door. Having nightmares, Lo said, but it was Li who continued the sentence. For her to have them is disgraceful. Naruto threw them a glare that would have melted a blizzard created by 10 master waterbenders. You know damn well who gave her those nightmares. If anyone is disgraceful, it's him, he told them both with a growl. Curb your tongue. This time it was Li who spoke first and Lo who finished. If you know what's good for you. He laughed. You know, I still don't understand why he assigned you two to teach her firebending. You're not even benders. And neither are you, both said in unison. Yeah, but the difference between me and him is I fight the war his family started while he and the both of you sit on your. In comfort. He waved them away. Now leave, you're not doing anything but being inconsiderate to her. You will not. They started to say but were silenced when they saw his eyes hardened. I said leave, he growled, his voice promising them a painful death if they didn't. They left rather quickly. He opened the door and walked through, closing it behind him. The candles that lights were off, but there was a small window that let in the full moon's light. The pale beam of the moon fell somewhat on the bed. Azula, he called out to the bed. Go away. The bed screamed. A fireball flew out from under the sheets, right at him. He ducked and let it fly over his head and hit the wall, dissipating harmlessly against the metal. Go away. I'm not a monster. It's all right, Azula. He stood at the end of the bed. It's Naruto. The edge of the covers lifted and Azula looked out at him, the light from the window showing the hopelessness and scared look on her face. And Naruto? She asked hesitantly. He nodded. It's me. She stared at him for a second and then leapt at him, burying her face in his chest as she held onto him and cried. Naruto sat down on the bed with her, simply holding her and rubbing her back while she cried, whispering soothing sounds. Was it the same dream again? He asked her when she had stopped. She nodded. I was chained to a post and surrounded by people who kept looking at me with disgust and hatred in their eyes. They kept calling me a monster. The post was set on fire and I was burning, but I could still hear them calling me a monster. She buried her head into his cheek again, tears threatening to fall. You're not a monster, Azula, he told her. You have a side of you which is both kind and caring. You have only just begun to show it recently. Do you remember the orphan you met on the street? She nodded. It was 2 weeks before her father ordered her to hunt down her brother and uncle. She had been walking with Naruto and a procession of Imperial firebenders through the city to see a prototype of a new battleship that was being built. As they approached the docks, a small boy ran past Azula and grabbed her money pouch. The boy did not get far before he captured by the Imperial firebenders. As he was about to lose a hand for stealing, Azula stopped them. She walked over to the boy, knelt so the two of them were at eye level. She asked him why he was stealing. He told her that he was stealing so he could buy food for the other kids at the orphanage because the person who ran the orphanage kept all the food and only fed the orphans the bare minimum. The owner also made them sleep in infested beds and rat-chewed sheets. When they got sick, they were not treated unless they were dying. When the boy was done, Azula had a look of pure fury on her face. Looking up at Naruto and her guard, she told them that they were going to this orphanage. Looking back at the boy, she asked him if he could show them where it was. He agreed and showed them the way to the orphanage. What they saw horrified them. The so-called orphanage was a rundown building. When they walked in, they were disgusted at the conditions in which the orphans lived in. When the owner came to greet Azula, she asked him why the orphans were living like this. He told them that he was short of funds. The boy called him a liar, saying he kept a large amount of money in the orphanage. The owner hit the boy and threatened to whip him in front of Azula, Naruto, and the Imperial firebenders. Azula told the Imperial firebenders to hold the owner and then told Naruto to go and look for the money. He came back after a few minutes, carrying a big truck full of Fire Nation money. He told Azula that it was only 1 out of 25. She then ordered the Imperial firebenders to throw the owner in prison. She then ordered Naruto to go down the docks and bring the workers who were building the prototype here. When they arrived, she told them to start fixing the building. The orphanage was going to be funded by the royal family, and the next time she would check the place, it will have better accommodations for the orphans, and it will have a better owner. She turned back to the boy, took back her pouch and opened it. She poured out about half of the money, gave it to him and told him to share with the other orphans. Those kids still think of you as their big sister. Do you think that makes you a monster? Naruto asked her. No, she answered, stopping her tears. Are you feeling better now? Yes. Naruto stood up, letting Azula stay on the bed. He turned to leave but was stopped when Azula grabbed his hand. Please stay, she said, scared at the thought of being alone. Naruto looked at her and then nodded. He lay down on the bed with his back to the wall. Azula lay down next to him, placing her back to his chest and hold his arm like it was a lifeline. She was asleep in less than 5 seconds. She is a broken child, the QB stated. It was so obvious that it was almost painful to see. I know she is. She can fix herself, but she needs a friend to help her. Naruto silently replied as he held her, and she held him in return. Is that all you want to be, Naruto? Or is it something more? The fox wondered to himself. Despite everything that seemed to point to the opposite, his Jinchuriki had his own nightmares to deal with. Location: Earth Kingdom. Aang walked into Fong's office, his footsteps echoing through the silent and all but empty hall. General Fong, he called out quietly. Come in, Aang. Have you thought about our discussion? Fong asked, despite already knowing the answer. He knew what the Avatar's answer was going to be the minute he heard him come in. I'm in. I'll fight the Fire Lord, Aang said. After a brief discussion with the general, Aang returned to the group's quarters. Both Katara and Sokka looked up from their beds as he walked in and went to his bed. I told the general I'd help him, by going into the Avatar state, he told them. Aang, no, this not the right way, Katara argued. Sokka said nothing as he absently scratched behind Akila's ear. There's a right way to do this. And it is through practice, study, and discipline. She continued. The general does have a point, Sokka began to say. But before he could finish, Katara interrupted. That's something I'd expect to hear from you. You just want Aang to glow it up or something. She almost shouted at him. That's not what I was talking, he tried to protest. But she cut him off again. If you two meatheads want to throw away everything we have worked for, fine. Go ahead and glow it up, she said in a huff as she walked out of the room. Katara, I'm just being realistic. I don't have time to do this the right way, Aang tried to defend himself. It didn't sound convincing to him either. The room was silent for a few minutes until the sound of breaking wind disrupted it. Damn it, Akila, at least aim it the other way, Sokka told his wolf pup. Somehow, Akila looked smug. What began the next day would seem to anyone else as weirdness. To start off, Fong had Aang drink a special tea that was supposed to enhance a person's Kai tenfold and might also make Aang go into the Avatar state. The result of that idea was Aang in a sugar high that would have made little kids either join him or watch in wonder. He was flying all around the place on an air ball, while also talking at a fast pace. As this all went on, Sokka commented that Aang could talk the Fire Lord to death. Akila was trying to follow Aang with his eyes. When Aang finally crashed into one of the columns, Akila covered his eyes with his paws. Both Sokka and Katara were not quite sure if he was doing that because of Aang crashing or because he got dizzy from watching Aang fly all over the place. Sokka tried to scare Aang into the Avatar state by using Momo as a head. Not only did that fail, but Akila saw Momo and decided he was hungry. The result was Akila chasing both Sokka and Momo around the fortress with Momo somehow managing to get stuck in Sokka's shirt, so Sokka had to stick his head out of the middle of the shirt, giving the appearance of a two-headed being, one head being human, the second head a flying lemur. The soldiers who were watching found it hilarious. The third attempt would have made any sane person check General Fong's head to see if there's actually a brain in there. He organized a ritual that had Aang wear clothing from all four nations which, quite frankly, look ridiculous. The shaman began to chant a lot of mumbo-jumbo, poured water and earth into a bowl, threw a torch in, used an air blower bellow and then, just to top it all off, threw the stuffed lettuce, call it mud, at Aang. The only thing they got out of that, Aang sneezing and splattering all the mud on Sokka, Katara, Fong and Akila. As they were about to leave, Akila shook himself in front of Fong, splattering him with more mud. To Sokka, the wolf pup was blaming the general for all this. Location: Spa Resort. Look at these magnificent shells, Iroh said as he emptied the bag onto the table of their small house. I'll enjoy these keepsakes for years to come. We don't need any more useless things now, Zuko told his uncle. You forget, we have to carry everything ourselves now. They then heard a voice that surprised them. Hello, brother. Uncle, Azula said from where she sat across the room. Naruto stood against the wall, close enough to move but with enough distance to let her take charge. Both Zuko and Iroh instantly went on their guard. What are you doing here? Zuko growled at his sister. In my country, we exchanged a pleasant hello before asking questions, Azula said lightly, fiddling with a seashell. Have you become so uncivilized so soon, Zuzu? She stood up and walked over with the seashell still in hand. Naruto followed by only a few steps. Don't call me that, Zuko yelled. He hated that nickname. She knew he hated that nickname. Iroh knew his niece wasn't here for a visit. To what do we owe this honor? He asked some suspicion. Even though Naruto had said she changed, it was still a good idea to be careful. It must be a family trait. Both of you so quick to get to the point. She broke the seashell with her fingers, causing Iroh to scowl. I come with a message from home. Father changed his mind. Family is suddenly important to him. He has heard of plans to overthrow him, treacherous plots. Family are the only ones you can trust. She looked at her brother for a moment, then out the window. Father regrets your banishment. He wants you home. She looked back to see her brother's reaction. Zuko just stood, mentally double-checking to make sure he heard his sister correctly. Meanwhile, Naruto walked up to Azula, told her that he will be outside and walked out the door. Did you hear what I just said? Azula demanded as her bodyguard left and Zuko looked out the window. You should happy, excited, grateful. I just gave you great news. I'm sure your brother simply needs a moment to, Iroh began. Don't interrupt, uncle, she snapped at him. She walked up beside Zuko. I still haven't received a thank you. I'm not a massager. I didn't have to come all this way. Father regrets. He wants me back. Zuko asked, still not sure about it. Suddenly, his dream was within his grasp. It almost seemed to be too good to be true. I can see you need time to take this in. I'll come to call on you tomorrow. Good evening. As she made her way back to the ship, she saw Naruto leaning against a tree waiting for her. When she passed him, he got up and walked behind her. Why did you leave? She asked. Because if I didn't, I would have started laughing, Naruto said. Family is important to the royal flaming asshole. That's one of the better jokes I've heard you tell, Azula. Yeah, a joke, Azula said quietly, but Naruto was still able to hear her. Am I going about this the right way, Naruto? He shrugged. You're doing what your father would do, and I know that the royal flaming asshole doesn't think friends or family are important. The question is, do you consider them important? She thought it over for a few minutes. By the time they returned to the ship, she replied, I'm not sure. Naruto simply nodded. I understand. Maybe you just need to think on it. Azula nodded in agreement as they boarded the ship. That sounded like a good idea. Location: Earth Kingdom. Aang sighed in defeat as he watched Katara walk away. He turned back around to watch the sunset. As he did, he heard Sokka come up beside him. Are you going to convince me that this is a bad idea now? He asked, turning slightly to look at the tribesman. Sokka shook his head. I know it's a bad idea, and so do you. You just want to end this war so badly that you're ignoring this one crucial point. Aang lost his temper after hearing this. Don't give me that, Sokka. You were agreeing with the general said after I told you to what I had done. He yelled at him. Sokka simply waited for Aang to be done. While I did say that the general had a point, Katara cut me off before I could finish. What I was going to say that it's also too risky to try it because there is a downside to it. Aang grew confused. What do you mean a downside? Aang, you know how I constantly use my boomerang. The airbender nodded. While the upside is that it can hit someone from far away and always come back to me, the downside is that it can take too long to come back to me. If I throw my boomerang at someone and that was my only weapon, it could give someone the chance to kill me. Every weapon has a downside, and from what I've seen, the avatar state is a weapon. How is the avatar state a weapon? When you enter the avatar state, your emotions take over and you let rage rule your actions. No, I don't. He immediately protested. Yes, you do, Aang, and when that happens, everyone in your way could get hurt. Look, my dad taught me that in battle, rage must be tempered with discipline. And how am I supposed to do that? Aang demanded. He really wanted to know how. But he was tried and exhausted by everything that had happened today. His temper was a bit short. Do what you're supposed, Learn and master the 4 elements, Sokka reminded him. He calmed down when he heard that. Do you think that will help me with the avatar state? Why else would all the previous avatars go through the exact same thing? The tribesman asked in return. Aang gave a small laugh at that. You're right, Sokka, he said before his face grew troubled. What about General Fong? Look, tomorrow morning, go tell the general that you want to continue on your journey. If he disagrees, I'll do something that'll prove my point. Are you sure? Sokka just gave him a small grin. Location: Spa Resort. We're going home, after 3 years. It's unbelievable, Zuko said as he packed. He had been excited ever since he fully realized what Azula had said earlier. But while his nephew kept moving around the house, Iroh looked out the window in thought. It is unbelievable, he agreed, albeit in a different way. I have never known my brother to regret anything. Did you listen to Azula? Father realized how important family is to him. He cares about me, Zuko protested, looking over at his uncle. He could believe that his sentiment was not shared. Iroh turned around to face his nephew. I care about you, and if Ozai wants you back, well, I think it may not be for the reasons you imagine, he told Zuko. Out of the 2 of them, he knew the Fire Lord better. You don't know how my father feels about me. You don't know anything, Zuko said, turning away from him. Zuko, Iroh said, I only meant that in our family, things are not always what they seem. Zuko whirled around, his anger exploding. I think you're exactly what you seem. You're a lazy, mistrustful, shallow old man who's always been jealous of his brother. He stomped away from his uncle, not seeing the downcast expression on his face. Location: Earth Kingdom. Aang stood in front of General Fong. Sokka had disappeared before he woke up and Katara wasn't anywhere nearby, so he was on his own. The thing is, I don't think we'll ever be able to trigger it on purpose, Aang explained. So, I guess that's it. Sure. I can't change your mind. Fong asked. If one were paying attention, one would have heard the slight pleading tone in his voice. Aang nodded, not hearing the tone. I'm sure. I can only reach the avatar state when I'm in genuine danger. The doors suddenly burst open as a soldier ran in. General Fong, he cried. What is it? The general asked as he rose from his desk. Look out the window into the courtyard, sir. Fong and Aang rushed over to the window. What they saw surprised them. A good majority of General Fong's army was fighting.